Captain Han Su felt the cold metal of the detention cell against his back as he leaned against the wall. The energy shackles around his wrists hummed with a low frequency that made his bones ache. Through the transparent aluminum barrier, he could see the massive galactic tribunal ship stretching endlessly in both directions. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy moved through the corridors, their various forms creating a living tapestry of alien life. The detention block housed criminals from dozens of worlds. In the cell next to him, a three-headed creature from the Sigma Quadrant clicked its mandibles rhythmically. Across the corridor, a blob of sentient plasma pulsed with angry red colors, but none of them had committed crimes as serious as his, or so the tribunal claimed. Su closed his eyes and remembered the battle. The human fleet had emerged from hyperspace near the mining colony of New Horizon, their ships sleek and predatory against the starfield. The Zephyrian vessels had been caught completely off guard, their organic hulls glistening like wet insects. In the void, what followed was 30 minutes of pure destruction that would change the course of galactic history. The cell door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, and two Vorth guards entered. These crystalline beings towered over him at nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies refracting light into prismatic rainbows. They moved with mechanical precision, their footsteps creating musical chimes against the deck plating. "Time for judgment, human," one guard spoke through a translation device clipped to its chest. The voice was cold and emotionless, like wind. Through crystal caves, they escorted him through corridors filled with species he had never seen before. A delegation of floating, jellyfish-like creatures drifted past, their translucent bodies pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. Robotic servants rolled between the crowds, their sensors tracking every movement and conversation. The air itself seemed alive with the hum of 1,000 different technologies working in harmony. The tribunal chamber was enormous, its domed ceiling reaching into darkness above. Tier upon tier of seats held representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The Aquarian delegate's blue skin rippled with barely contained emotion as it watched the proceedings. Mechanical beings from the android collective observed with glowing optical sensors. Even the energy beings from the nebula worlds had manifested physical forms for this historic trial. Judge Veltar stood at the center of it all, his crystalline form catching the chamber's lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice resonated through both the air and the floor, making every being present feel the weight of his words. "Captain Han Su of the Terran Federation," the judge began, "you stand accused of the most heinous crimes known to galactic law. Your species has violated every principle of civilized conduct." Dr. Park Hana sat in the defendants section, her dark eyes flashing with frustration. As Earth's most experienced diplomat, she had spent years building relationships with various alien cultures. She understood their customs, spoke their languages, and respected their ways. But even she couldn't hide her anger at how this trial was proceeding. "Your Honor," she tried to interject, rising from her seat. "Silence," Judge Veltar commanded, his form flaring brighter. "The human delegate will speak only when permitted." The Aquarian delegate leaned forward in its fluid motion chair, its gills fluttering with excitement. "These creatures from Earth think only of war and conquest. They have no place among civilized beings." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembled crowd. The insectoid hive mind representative clicked its approval. The plant-based beings from the garden worlds rustled their leaves in disapproval of humanity. Even the normally neutral silicon-based Federation nodded their geometric heads. Captain Su watched it all with calm eyes. He had expected this reaction. Humanity was still new to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most species had been exploring space for millennia. To them, humans were children playing with dangerous toys. "The evidence speaks for itself," Judge Veltar continued, activating a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The recorded battle played in 3 dimensions, showing human vessels firing devastating energy weapons at the Zephyrian fleet. Ship after ship exploded in brilliant balls of plasma and debris. The crowd watched in horrified silence as the slaughter unfolded. The human ships moved with deadly efficiency, their tactics brutal and unforgiving. No quarter was given, no mercy shown. When the last Zephyrian vessel was destroyed, the human fleet simply jumped away, leaving nothing but wreckage and the void. 47. Vessels destroyed, the judge announced. Over 3,000 Zephyrian lives lost. An entire battle fleet wiped from existence in less than 30 minutes. The chamber erupted in angry voices and alien sounds. Some beings called for humanity's immediate quarantine. Others demanded that Earth itself be placed under galactic supervision. The hatred was palpable, pressing against Sue like a physical weight. Judge Veltar raised his hand for silence. Captain Sue, you have witnessed the evidence against your species. The destruction you caused violates 17 separate peace treaties and breaks the most fundamental laws of galactic civilization. Do you deny these charges? Sue stood slowly, his shackles clinking together. He looked around the vast chamber, meeting the eyes and optical senses of beings from across the known universe. They all waited for his response, expecting him to beg for mercy or try to justify the unjustifiable. Instead, he smiled. I deny nothing, he said clearly, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. But you don't understand what really happened. Prosecutor Kethmore moved across the tribunal floor like a predator, stalking its prey. His species, the Jakari, were known throughout the galaxy for their sharp minds and even sharper tongues. His elongated skull gleamed under the chamber lights, and his forearms gestured dramatically as he prepared to destroy humanity's reputation forever. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Kethmore began, his voice smooth as silk but deadly. As poison, today we witness the trial of a species that has shown its true nature. These humans claim to be civilized, yet their actions speak louder than any words. The holographic display activated, filling the chamber's center with a three-dimensional recreation of the battle. The image quality was perfect, captured by automated monitoring stations that recorded everything in this sector of space. Every detail was crystal clear, from the sleek human warships emerging from hyperspace to the organic curves of the Zephyrian vessels caught unprepared. Captain Han Su watched, himself relive the moment. In the hologram, his flagship, the TFS Incheon, led a formation of 12 human vessels. The ships were built for war, their hulls bristling with particle cannons and missile launchers. They moved with deadly precision, their formations tight and disciplined. The Zephyrian fleet had been conducting what appeared to be routine patrol operations. Their ships were beautiful in an alien way, with hulls that looked grown rather than built. Organic curves and flowing lines made them appear more like sea creatures than spacecraft. 47 vessels in total, ranging from small scouts to massive battle cruisers. Watch carefully, Kethmore commanded, pointing at the display. See how the humans approach. No warning signals, no attempt at communication. They simply open fire. The hologram showed the moment of first contact. Human ships unleashed devastating volleys of energy weapons, their beams cutting through space like swords of light. The Zephyrian vessels tried to respond, but they had been caught completely off guard. Their organic hulls, designed for deep space exploration, proved vulnerable to focused military assault. The audience watched in horrified fascination as human tactics unfolded. The ships worked together like a pack of wolves, surrounding and destroying individual Zephyrian vessels before moving to the next target. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. Each attack was calculated for maximum damage. A young Zephyrian cruiser tried to escape, its organic engines pulsing with desperate energy. But 3 human destroyers cut off its path, their weapons firing in perfect synchronization. The alien ship exploded in a brilliant flash, its hull rupturing like a broken egg. "Observe this moment," Kethmore said, freezing the hologram on the explosion. "A vessel trying to flee, destroyed without mercy. This is not warfare, honored judges. This is massacre." The Aquarian delegate's gills fluttered with emotion as it watched its ally species being destroyed. The Silicon-based Federation representatives hummed with electronic disapproval. Even the usually calm tree people from the forest worlds rustled, their branches in distress. But Captain Sue noticed something else in the recording. The timestamp showed the battle had lasted exactly 28 minutes and 43 seconds, not a moment longer than necessary. His fleet had accomplished its mission with ruthless efficiency, then immediately jumped away. No pursuit of fleeing vessels that had already surrendered. No destruction of escape pods. Just cold, calculated military action. "The evidence continues," Kethmore declared, advancing the hologram to show the aftermath. Debris fields floated, where proud Zephyrian ships had once sailed. Emergency beacons blinked desperately in the void, calling for rescue that would come too late for many. Dr. Park Hanna sat in the defendant's section, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She had seen this recording dozens of times preparing for the trial. But watching it again, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who saw only senseless violence, made her stomach turn. The hive mind representative spoke through its translation device, its multiple voices creating an eerie harmony. "The humans show no emotion during this slaughter. They kill as easily as breathing. Such beings cannot be allowed to spread through the galaxy." "Indeed," agreed the energy being from Sector 7, its plasma form flickering with agitation. "We have seen species like this before. They consume everything in their path, leaving only destruction behind." Judge Veltar studied the holographic evidence with his multifaceted eyes, each one focusing on different aspects of the battle. "Prosecutor Kethmore, you claim the Zephyrians attempted peaceful communication before this attack?" "Absolutely, Your Honor," Kethmore replied, producing another data crystal. "The Zephyrian fleet transmitted on all standard frequencies, attempting to establish dialogue with the human vessels. They received no response except weapons fire." The prosecutor activated the new hologram, showing communication logs from the Zephyrian ships. The alien text scrolled past in their flowing script, translated into Galactic Standard for the tribunal. Messages of greeting, attempts at contact, even pleas for the humans to explain their hostile actions. "You see?" Kethmore gestured triumphantly. "A civilized species trying to prevent bloodshed, meeting only with barbarism." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several delegates stood to demand immediate action against Earth. The crystalline collective chimed their disapproval in harmonic frequencies that made the walls vibrate. Robotic servants throughout the chamber recorded every word, their sensors, analyzing the emotional state of each speaker. But Dr. Hanna had heard enough. She rose from her seat, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Your Honor, I request permission to present additional evidence." Judge Veltar's form flickered with annoyance. "The prosecution has already presented complete sensor logs of the engagement. What more could possibly be relevant?" "The context, Your Honor," Hanna replied, pulling out her own data storage device. "What happened before the battle began?" Kethmore scoffed, his forearms gesturing dismissively. "The defendant attempts to distract from clear evidence of war crimes. There is no justification for such brutality." "Permission granted," Judge Veltar decided, "but be brief, human. The evidence against your species is overwhelming." Dr. Hanna activated her holographic projector, her hands steady despite the pressure of having the entire galaxy watching. "Honorable judges, this transmission was received by the human colony ship New Soul 3 hours before the battle began." The new hologram appeared, showing a standard communication header with timestamp and frequency data. But the message that followed sent shockwaves through the assembled crowd. The transmission was in perfect galactic standard, spoken by a Zephyrian voice that was calm and professional. "Attention human vessels. We are the Zephyrian Third Fleet under the command of war leader Thexnal. Your presence in this system has been noted and recorded. Surrender your colony ships immediately and prepare to be harvested. Your species will serve as livestock for our growing empire. Resistance will only increase your suffering." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the ambient sounds of life support systems seemed muted. Judge Veltar's crystalline form dimmed as he processed what he had just heard. This cannot be accurate," he whispered, his voice barely audible through the translation system. Communications Officer Li Jin stepped forward from the human delegation area, her uniform crisp despite the long journey to the tribunal ship. She had spent the last 3 weeks analyzing every piece of data from the human colonies, preparing for this moment. Her hands remained steady as she activated her portable holographic projector, even though she knew the entire galaxy was watching. The first hologram that appeared showed the bridge of the colony ship New Sol. It was a civilian vessel designed for transporting families and equipment to new worlds. Children's drawings decorated the walls of the recreation areas. Family photos lined the corridors. This was not a warship, but a home for thousands of people seeking a better life among the stars. Honorable judges, Jin began, her voice clear and professional. This is the complete sensor record from our colony ship New Sol, covering a period of 4 months before the battle you witnessed. The hologram shifted to show a star map of human space. Red dots marked human colonies, while blue lines traced ship movements through the sector. What emerged was a pattern that made several alien delegates lean forward in their seats. The Zephyrian Third Fleet first appeared in our territory on day 127, Jin explained, highlighting specific data points. They approached the mining colony on Kepler 442b, claiming to be conducting scientific research. The hologram showed a peaceful first contact scenario. Zephyrian ships approached the human mining station with all the proper diplomatic protocols. They broadcast friendship messages and requested permission to study the planet's unique crystal formations. The human colonists, eager to make friends with an advanced alien species, welcomed them warmly. The colonists invited them to land and share a meal, Jin continued, her voice becoming quieter. 37 families lived on that mining station, parents, children, grandparents. They were excited to meet their first aliens. The hologram shifted to surveillance footage from inside the mining station. Humans and Zephyrians sat together, around dining tables, sharing food and trying to communicate, despite language barriers. Human children stared in wonder at the alien visitors, while their parents asked questions about distant worlds. Then the footage changed. The Zephyrians moved with sudden coordination, producing restraint devices from hidden compartments in their organic armor. The humans barely had time to react before they were subdued. Children screamed for their parents. Elderly colonists were knocked down as they tried to protect their families. Every human on that station was taken, Jin reported. The Zephyrians left automated distress beacons to make it look like an accident. Pirates, they claimed. Space bandits who prey on isolated colonies. The Aquarian delegate's blue skin had turned pale during the footage. Its gills fluttered rapidly as it processed what it was seeing. This cannot be accurate. The Zephyrians are members of the Galactic Peace Alliance. They signed the Protection Protocols for Developing Species. Dr. Park Hana stood up, her datapad glowing with additional information. Officer Jin, please show them what happened to the colony on New Horizon. The hologram changed to show another human settlement, this one on a beautiful planet with purple skies and golden seas. The colony was larger than the mining station, home to nearly 10,000 people. They had farms, schools, hospitals, and small manufacturing centers. It was becoming a real civilization. The Zephyrian ships arrived with the same peaceful approach, but this time the colonists were suspicious. Word had spread about the missing miners, and the colonial governor had issued warnings about unknown alien contacts. The Zephyrians spent 3 days circling the planet, Jin explained. They broadcast messages about wanting to trade and share technology, but our long-range sensors detected something else. The hologram zoomed in on the Zephyrian fleet. Hidden among the diplomatic vessels were darker ships with different hull configurations. These vessels carried no identification markings and transmitted no signals. They moved like predators waiting for the right moment to strike. Processing ships, Jin identified them, mobile facilities designed to handle large quantities of organic material. The attack came at night, when most of the colonists were sleeping. The Zephyrian diplomatic vessels suddenly launched swarms of capture pods, while the processing ships moved into low orbit. The human colonial defense force consisted of only 12 security officers with basic equipment. They never had a chance. But the colonists had learned from the mining station incident. Emergency protocols were activated and distress signals were sent to every human ship within range. Hidden cameras throughout the colony recorded everything that happened next. The footage was difficult to watch. Zephyrian soldiers herded humans into transport containers like livestock. Families were separated, with the strongest adults loaded onto one type of ship while children and elderly were taken elsewhere. The aliens worked with mechanical efficiency, showing no emotion as they processed human beings like cargo. This pattern repeated across 17 human colonies, Jin continued, her voice growing harder. Each time the Zephyrians would approach peacefully, gather intelligence about the population, then return with processing ships. The hive mind representative clicked its mandibles in confusion. But why were these incidents not reported to the Council? Standard protocols require all species to document contact with unknown aliens. Captain Han Su stepped forward, his shackles clinking as he moved. We did report them. Every single incident was filed with the Galactic Monitoring Station on Rigel. 7. We followed every protocol, submitted every form, provided complete documentation. Judge Veltar's crystalline form flickered brighter. That is impossible. The Council reviews all reports of hostile alien contact. We would have been informed immediately. Dr. Hana activated her own holographic display, showing official Galactic Council communication logs. Your Honor, here are copies of every report we submitted. Each one was marked as under review, and then nothing. No response, no investigation, no contact of any kind. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Representatives from dozens of species looked at each other with growing unease. The tree people rustled their leaves nervously. The energy beings flickered with agitation. Even the usually confident silicon-based Federation began running diagnostic checks on their data systems. Furthermore, Hana continued, when we tried to contact other species who had dealings with the Zephyrians, we discovered something disturbing. Every species that had reported Zephyrian aggression was either listed as extinct or relocated to protected status. Jin added more data to the holographic display, showing shipping records and fleet movements. The Zephyrians have been targeting species that aren't part of the Galactic Council, races that are too young, too isolated, or too primitive to have official representation. They know that no one will investigate if we disappear. The Aquarian delegate's voice was barely a whisper. The Keth Moran Collective. They went missing 3 years ago. The Zephyrians claimed it was a plague that wiped them out. The singing. Crystals of Vega Prime, added the silicon-based representative. They said it was a natural disaster. The floating cities of Nebula 7, the energy being flickered sadly. Structural failure, they reported. More voices joined in, each remembering a species that had vanished under mysterious circumstances. All had been young civilizations. All had been in areas where Zephyrian ships operated. All had been explained away with convenient disasters. That left no survivors to tell their stories. Judge Veltar's form had grown dim as the full scope of the situation became clear. Captain Su, if what you claim is true, why did your species not seek Council protection? Why resort to violence? Su looked directly at the judge, his eyes burning with controlled anger. Because you never asked. When human colonies started disappearing, you assumed we were too primitive to understand what was happening. When we tried to report crimes, you buried our complaints in bureaucracy. When we begged for help, you ignored us. He gestured toward the holographic evidence surrounding them. You want to know why we fought? Because we learned that in this galaxy, if you can't protect yourself, no one else will. Engineer Kim Dao approached the central tribunal console with the confidence of someone who had spent years working with alien technology. Her specialty was data recovery and system analysis, skills that had made her invaluable during humanity's expansion into space. The massive crystalline computer core of the tribunal ship hummed with power as she interfaced her portable equipment with its ancient systems. Honorable judges, Dao announced, her fingers dancing across her control pad. With your permission, I would like to access the Galactic Council's own historical database to verify these claims. Judge Veltar's form flickered with uncertainty. The tribunal's database contained thousands of years of galactic history, carefully maintained by the most advanced civilizations in known space. If the humans could prove their accusations using the Council's own records, it would be impossible to deny. Permission granted, the judge decided, but any attempt to falsify data will result in immediate conviction. Dao smiled grimly as she established the connection. Her equipment, though primitive by galactic standards, was specifically designed to interface with alien systems. Human engineers had learned to be adaptable when dealing with technology from dozens of different species. The main holographic display activated, showing the tribunal's database structure. Thousands of data streams flowed like rivers of light, each one representing records from different sectors of the galaxy. Dao began cross-referencing species disappearances with Zephyrian fleet movements, her algorithms working at incredible speed. Computer, show all recorded instances of species extinction or disappearance in the past 5 years, she commanded. The hologram shifted, displaying a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red markers appeared throughout known space, each one representing a civilization that had gone silent. The pattern was scattered at first, seeming random to casual observation. Now overlay Zephyrian trade routes and fleet movements for the same period, Dao continued. Blue lines traced across the galactic map showing the paths taken by Zephyrian vessels. Where the blue lines intersected with red markers, the correlation was undeniable. Nearly every vanished species had been located along established Zephyrian shipping lanes. The chamber fell silent as the assembled delegates absorbed what they were seeing. The Aquarian representatives' gills had stopped fluttering entirely. The tree people's leaves had turned a sickly yellow color. Even the robotic observers seemed to be processing the data with unusual intensity. The Karnathi civilization, Dao reported, highlighting a specific marker, vanished from their homeworld 2 years ago. Official records claim they were destroyed by a solar flare. But observe this. The hologram zoomed in on the Karnathi system, showing detailed sensor readings from the time of their disappearance. 3 Zephyrian vessels had been present in the system during the exact week the Karnathi went silent. The Silurian colonies on the outer rim, Dao continued, moving to another marker. 6 months ago, all communication ceased. The official report blamed equipment failure. But again, Zephyrian ships were recorded in that sector just days before the silence began. More examples followed, each one building an undeniable pattern of predation. The singing crystals of Altair, the gas whale herders of Neptune's edge, the cave dwellers of the asteroid fields. Dozens of young civilizations, all conveniently eliminated, just as Zephyrian fleets passed through their territories. In the diplomatic section, Ambassador Thexanal shifted nervously in his specialized seating apparatus. His organic armor had begun to change color, shifting from the calm blues of diplomacy to the aggressive purples of a cornered predator. His 4 eyes darted toward the chamber exits, calculating distances and escape routes. "These accusations are preposterous," Thexanal declared, his voice carrying the harmonics of extreme agitation. "The humans are obviously fabricating evidence to justify their unprovoked attack on peaceful Zephyrian vessels." But Captain Han Su wasn't finished. He had been saving the most damning evidence for this moment, waiting for the perfect time to reveal the truth that would shock the galaxy to its core. "Computer," Su commanded, his voice carrying across the vast chamber. "Display the contents of captured Zephyrian data core Gamma 7. The hologram shifted again, this time showing the internal memory banks of a Zephyrian command ship. The data had been recovered during the boarding operation after the battle, extracted from the flagship's main computer before the vessel was destroyed. What appeared on the display made several delegates physically recoil in horror. It was a shipping manifest, but not for any normal cargo. Listed in neat columns were living beings from 17 different species, categorized and priced like products in a marketplace. "Karnathi juveniles," Dao read from the manifest, her voice steady despite the horrific nature of the data. "Grade B protein source, market value 450 credits per unit. Silurian adults, Class A delicacy, 800 credits each. Helterian crystals, sentient gemstone variety, 1,200 credits per consciousness." The list continued, each entry more disturbing than the last. Entire civilizations reduced to inventory numbers and profit margins. Sentient beings treated as nothing, more than exotic food items for wealthy Zephyrian consumers. But it was the final entry that sent shockwaves through the assembled council. In the section marked Recent Acquisitions was a new category that made Judge Veltar's crystalline form dim with horror. Humans, Terran variety, Dao read, her voice barely controlled. Grade A livestock, high protein yield, excellent flavor profile. Market value 2,500 credits per adult specimen. juveniles suitable for breeding stock, recommended for premium restaurant chains. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had known the Zephyrians for centuries began questioning everything they thought they understood. The hive mind representatives clicked their mandibles in distress. The energy beings flickered with barely contained rage. Even the usually stoic silicon-based Federation began transmitting urgent communications to their home worlds. Judge Veltar struggled to maintain order as the full scope of Zephyrian crimes became clear. His voice, when he finally spoke, carried a tone of horror that none of the assembled beings had ever heard before. "By the ancient laws of galactic civilization," he intoned, his crystalline form pulsing with barely controlled energy, "these records appear to document systematic genocide on a scale not seen since the dark wars of the Third Epoch." All eyes turned to Ambassador Thexnell, who had backed almost to the chamber's exit. His organic armor had shifted to deep crimson, the color of a Zephyrian preparing for combat. His diplomatic composure had completely cracked, revealing the predator beneath the civilized facade. "Thexnell," Judge Veltar commanded, his voice echoing through every speaker in the chamber. "By your oath as a galactic ambassador, I demand you answer truthfully. Are these records accurate?" The Zephyrian ambassador's silence stretched for long moments as hundreds of alien eyes focused on him. Security robots moved to block the exits, their weapon systems powering up with electronic whines. The chamber's artificial gravity seemed to increase, pressing down on everyone present with the weight of impending justice. When Thexnell finally spoke, his voice had lost all pretense of diplomacy. The harmonics of his species' natural aggression colored every word, revealing the monster that civilization had tried to hide. "You fools," he hissed, his four eyes blazing with contempt. "You sit in your comfortable chambers, making laws about peace and cooperation, while the galaxy's resources are wasted on inferior species. We took what was rightfully ours. We brought order to chaos." His admission sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Zephyrians hadn't just committed genocide. They had done it deliberately, systematically, with the full knowledge and approval of their government. Captain Sue stepped forward, his shackles clinking in the sudden silence. "And now you understand why we fought. Because in a galaxy where predators wear the mask of civilization, sometimes the only justice comes from those willing to remove that mask by force." The Galactic Council chambers exploded into chaos, unlike anything seen in the Tribunal's 1,000-year history. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting simultaneously, their voices creating a cacophony of alien languages and electronic translations. The Aquarian delegates' blue skin had turned deep purple with rage, while the tree people's leaves rustled so violently they sounded like a hurricane. Security robots moved through the aisles, their sensors working overtime to monitor stress levels and prevent violence. Several smaller species had activated personal defense shields, while the larger predatory races showed clear signs of territorial aggression. The chamber's environmental systems struggled to filter the pheromones and chemical signals being released by hundreds of different life forms. Ambassador Thexnell tried to push toward the exit, but 4 crystalline security guards blocked his path. Their energy weapons hummed to life, creating a barrier of deadly light that even his organic armor couldn't penetrate. The Zephyrian's diplomatic immunity meant nothing now that his government's crimes had been exposed. "Order!" Judge Veltar commanded, his crystalline form blazing with authority. The sound resonated through the chamber's walls, creating harmonics that forced every species present to pause and listen. "The tribunal will have order." Slowly, the chaos subsided as delegates returned to their seats. But the anger remained, crackling through the air like electricity before a storm. Species that had been allies for centuries looked at each other with new suspicion, wondering what other horrors had been hidden behind masks of civilization. The hive mind representative was the first to speak, its multiple voices creating an eerie harmony. "Honored Judge, my collective wishes to report 17 missing scout ships in Zephyrian space over the past 3 years. We attributed their loss to navigation errors." The Silicon-based Federation confirmed similar losses, added, their geometric speaker, 43 research vessels. We believed it was equipment failure caused by Zephyrian organic technology interference. More testimonies followed, each one adding to the mountain of evidence against the Zephyrians. The gas whale herders spoke of entire migration routes that had gone silent. The energy beings reported disruptions in their communication networks. Even the mighty dragon lords of the Outer Rim admitted to losing contact with exploration fleets. Dr. Park Hana stood among the human delegation, watching as the galaxy's most advanced civilizations realized they had been systematically deceived. For years, she felt no satisfaction in being proven right, only sadness for all the lives that could have been saved if the truth had been discovered sooner. Engineer Kim Dao continued extracting data from the Zephyrian files, her equipment working at maximum capacity. "Your Honor," she called out, "I'm finding evidence of processing facilities on over 40 worlds. The scale of this operation is enormous." Judge Veltar's form flickered as he processed the implications. Emergency protocols are now in effect. All Zephyrian vessels in Council space are to be detained immediately. Ambassador Thexnull, by the authority vested in this tribunal, I revoke your diplomatic immunity and place you under arrest for crimes against galactic civilization. The Zephyrian ambassador's organic armor shifted to combat colors as security. Robots surrounded him. His 4 eyes blazed with fury as restraint fields activated around his body. "So you make a mistake," he snarled. "The Zephyrian Empire will not forget this insult. We have fleets that could destroy half your worlds." "Then perhaps," Judge Veltar replied coldly, "it is time those fleets learned what justice looks like." Emergency. Broadcasts went out across the galaxy within minutes. Council fleets from dozens of species began converging on known Zephyrian territories. Rescue ships prepared to search for survivors on the worlds where missing colonies had last been seen. The largest military mobilization in galactic history was beginning, but amid all the chaos and preparation, Judge Veltar turned his attention back to the humans who had started it all. Captain Han Su stood calmly in his energy shackles, watching the galaxy prepare for war with the same steady composure he had shown throughout the trial. "Captain Su," the judge said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "this council owes humanity a grave apology. Your actions were not aggression as we believed. They were justice in its purest form." The energy shackles around Su's wrists deactivated with a soft chime. For the first time in days, he was free to move without restraint. He rubbed his wrists thoughtfully, feeling circulation return to his hands. "However," Judge Veltar continued, his crystalline form growing brighter, "this situation raises a troubling question that we must address. How did a species as young as humanity succeed in uncovering crimes that our most advanced civilizations failed to even notice?" The chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien beings waited for the answer. Some looked embarrassed by their failure to detect the Zephyrian threat. Others seemed genuinely curious about human capabilities. A few appeared, worried about what other surprises this young species might be hiding. Captain Su exchanged glances with Dr. Hana before answering. She nodded encouragingly, knowing that his response would shape humanity's relationship with the galaxy for generations to come. "Your Honor," Su began, his voice steady and clear, "you call us primitive because we're willing to fight when others prefer to negotiate. You see our military preparations as signs of aggression rather than necessary precautions. But sometimes, the galaxy needs someone willing to get their hands dirty." He gestured toward the evidence still floating in the holographic displays around them. "Your advanced civilizations are built on trust, cooperation, and the assumption that others share your values. These are admirable qualities, but they also make you vulnerable to predators who exploit that trust." Communications Officer Li Jin stepped forward to add her perspective. "We humans come from a world where survival meant being suspicious of strangers and ready to defend ourselves. We never assumed that intelligence meant benevolence. The galaxy taught us to be paranoid," Dr. Hana added with a slight smile. "Every species we met was more advanced, more powerful, more capable than us. We had to assume some of them might be hostile, so we prepared for the worst while hoping for the best." Judge Veltar processed their words carefully, his multiple eyes focusing on different aspects of their explanation. Around the chamber, other species began to understand why humanity had succeeded where they had failed. "Indeed," the judge said slowly, Your species possesses something that we have perhaps lost in our pursuit of civilization, the warrior's instinct to recognize danger and act decisively against it. He paused, his form pulsing with energy as he reached a momentous decision. Therefore, I hereby propose that humanity be granted immediate admission to the Galactic Council, not as junior members requiring guidance, but as the new enforcement division, with full authority to investigate and respond to threats against galactic peace. The vote was swift and unanimous. Species after species voiced their approval, recognizing that they needed humanity's unique perspective to prevent future tragedies. The humans had proven they could see dangers that others missed and act when action was needed. As the final votes were tallied, Captain Sue allowed himself a small smile. Humanity had come to the stars expecting to be students, learning from ancient civilizations that had explored the galaxy for millennia. Instead, they had become the teachers the galaxy never knew it needed, showing advanced species that sometimes the most important lesson was remembering how to fight for justice. Engineer. Kim Dow shut down her equipment as the formal proceedings concluded. Around her, representatives from hundreds of worlds began planning the largest rescue operation in galactic history. The Zephyrian threat would be eliminated, their victims rescued, and their crimes answered for. But perhaps most importantly, the galaxy had learned that being civilized didn't mean being defenseless. Sometimes, the greatest act of civilization was having the courage to fight against those who would destroy it. The end.